I get into this morning's talk, which is on group consciousness and discipleship, I wanted to address what the teaching has to say about the times that we are in. I've received numerous emails from people that are in a sense of despair, have a sense of hopelessness about the situations going on most recently going on within this country, but also the world today. And rather than to answer them individually, I thought, let's do this morning. What is the first thing that we need to do? And that is always go to the teaching. Because it's in the teaching, the pure teaching, that we're going to find our answers and our inspiration. Some people ask me, what can we do? We have been reading for many years about the principles of life, and that there are certain essential principles that we can put to work in our lives in any situation, even if it makes us uncomfortable. And these 7 principles are beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, freedom. And then we can add the other 2 principles, one which is striving, and the other which is service, sacrificial service. Sacrificial service means to serve the greatest need, not our personal need, but the greatest need. Sacrifice means serving at the level of the soul. So our challenge is, if we just take one of these principles, in this case, let's say beauty, our challenge is to put beauty in our environment, physical environment, then to put beauty in our emotions, and then especially in our thoughts, to think thoughts of beauty. Thoughts and emotions, feelings, and physical beauty is uplifting. It is a way to drive out ugliness and darkness and despair and hopelessness. And then you have to determine for yourself, what is beauty? How do you see beauty and experience it and feel it? So that's the first thing. Then I want to read to you a couple of things. First, a verse from the Call. And it's the book Call is from verse 4, and it says this: "My friends, happiness lies in serving the salvation of humanity. Put aside all prejudices, and summoning your spiritual forces, aid mankind. Direct the unsightly toward the path of beauty. As the tree renews its leaves, so shall humanity flourish in the path of righteousness." It's right there. This is why I say, when you feel hopeless and despair and you can't find answers outside of yourself, go to the teaching. And the teaching says this is what to do. Now, in Letters of Helena Rourke, Volume 2, she wrote, "During the days of Armageddon, the entire hierarchy of light is gathered in one stronghold. For thousands of years, the great spirits have been preparing for this time. As for the denial of the existence of the Black Lodge, one could answer them with the words of the European philosopher, the victory of the devil is that he has succeeded in convincing people that he does not exist. The Black Lodge does exist and is very powerful because it acts through the masses, and its best servants are recruited from the feeble-minded, the lukewarm, and the wavering. The dark ones try to imitate the White Lodge. Let me repeat this. The dark ones try to imitate the White Lodge in everything. And under the disguise of light, they try with all their might to penetrate to the spiritual hearths so that they can disturb and corrupt them. That is why it is so important to acquire the qualities of discrimination and self-restraint. And then one more from the letters of Helena Rourke. During the days of Armageddon, the forces of evil have become stronger. Therefore, it is so essential to recognize the hierarchy of light and to strive upon this path with one's whole heart. Of course, as it always was and will be, darkness itself will devour darkness. You might want to write that down because this is the answer. Darkness itself will devour darkness. But how many lukewarm ones will perish, who could have been saved if they had realized the danger in time and had taken strong hold of the hand of help stretched out to them? Now you might think, well, this is kind of, old language. When you think of Armageddon, most people think Armageddon happened a long time ago, or that is going to happen in the future. Well, I would say we're experiencing it right now. Others believe that we are coming to the end of the Kali Yuga. Timing of the Kali Yuga is very controversial among students of the teachings. We've been told that the beginning of the end of Kali Yuga started in the year 2000. Someone else just recently posted on one of our forums that it starts 2025. Well, that's interesting. That was a new one. I hadn't heard that one before. But the point is that once Kali Yuga is over, once Armageddon is over, then Satya Yuga takes its place. It's like the storm is brewing, the storm, we're right in the middle of the storm. What happens when the storm dissipates? What happens? You just think of, what popped into my mind was that horrible volcano that erupted in Mount Helen years ago. Now there is grass growing. The sun is nurturing. For those of us that are not buried in the present, our consciousness is forward thinking. And that requires from us the practice, putting the teachings into practice right now. It asks from us not to question the teaching. The teaching says, practice now. Don't wait until you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, or that you're facing bankruptcy, or that you're going to lose your home for foreclosure, or all those horrible things that can happen to any of us. Start right now. Don't wait until tragedy to begin to practice the teaching. And this is why the teaching is a purifying agent. When we practice these basic principles, beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, and freedom, and then move into striving toward perfection and serve the common need of humanity, this magical process called transformation takes place in our life. And that transformation is a process of cleaning out the debris of many incarnations, that we keep bringing forward life after life after life and falling into these past incarnations of experiences. We default into these old experiences, which is truly called instinct. You know, our body, our mind, our emotions instinctively, unconsciously, but instinctively pick up where we left off, bring everything with us that we left from the earlier incarnation, and we just continue to live the same way. So that's where we want to stop, reevaluate where we're going from this point forward, not to challenge life, not to say life sucks, and to say I'm a victim of life. Not at all. Life is a gift. How do we treat a gift? By giving back what we have been given. So we're either going to give back through examples of beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, freedom, or we're going to just continue to take from the history of our past incarnations, repeat ourselves over and over and over again in this life, and lose any sense of direction of future. See what I'm saying? So, the teaching is not something just to study and gain knowledge and then think that you are it. Meaning what you have read. It is actually, really actually putting it into practice, and that's what's tough. You know, that's what's hard. It's like, how do you experience joy when darkness is all around you? See, these are our challenges. How do we do this? When, we have this very successful prisoners program. Interestingly enough, it's so successful. So many people imprisoned, in jail and prisons, are taking these courses. Well, one of the courses, the very first lesson is freedom. You should read their responses of what freedom means to them, particularly the lifers, those that are there for the rest of their life, what freedom means to them. Now, when I read the papers of people who have, physical freedom, who are not imprisoned, who are living in their homes and so forth, I say, I don't know of anybody that experiences freedom. I don't see it at all. And yet those that are in prison see it, feel it, think about it. They're the ones that are delving more deeply into the concept of freedom, like freedom from dark thinking, freedom from anger and hatred and malice and so forth. That's where it starts. So anyway, that's my answer. And this will be going up on YouTube, and I've told people just the YouTube video will be posted this afternoon, tonight, or tomorrow. It just depends on when YouTube decides to, present it on the internet. So anyway, go back and listen to this. Okay, so moving into this morning's talk. There was a musical video called Meet Me Halfway by the Black Eyed Peas. This video was released in 2009, and it was from the album called The End, E-N-D, which stands for The Energy Never Dies. Will.i.am, W-I-L-L.I.M, said about the track, I'm assuming you know Will.i.am. I know Ian does. Some of the rest of you may not. Anyway, Will.i.am said about the tract that many things, which I won't take the time to share here, but he concluded his explanation of the song in the video by saying that the artwork he made for this song explains the song perfectly, which was this: a road and outer space. You know it is impossible to drive a car or walk to outer space. This picture is two people in the video, two people traveling on the path of love, trying to meet halfway. One travels by road, the other by the stars, and they are to meet in the middle. This is what Will.i.am explained. The video features the members in different parts of the solar system. The video opens on a road in the middle of a desert, panning up to the cosmic sky, which shifts to scenes of each of the members singing in different locations of space. One person called Fergie lies, and I'm sure some of you know Fergie, right? Okay. Fergie lies in the middle of a lush green jungle, levitates on a desert planet in nomadic clothing. Will.i.am rides on an elephant on a moon of Jupiter, and another member of the group glides around the sun in a spacesuit. Another group member takes out a map, and Will.i.am uses a compass to search for a path to the other members. After a while, Will.i.am finds a dial that reveals gateways for each of the members to go through. All the members use a stargate and turn into shooting stars. And they then land on the planet with the road in the middle of the desert. The Great One, Master M, told us, new ones. There is no place for the old ones in the new construction. Why address the old ones when already the lightnings of a new world illumine the horizon? When the traveler spurs his steed to reach his goal, even we watch the clock of evolution. Putting an ear to the sands of the desert, he said, we hear far off voices which speak about an unprecedented epoch. Do you see the language going on here? Last week I said we needed to find such pearls or signs throughout our life about how to expand our consciousness, but we need to pay attention. And that video is one sign. Most of the people I know will not listen to music written or performed by the Black Eyed Peas, nor take the time to watch their musical video. But those of you who did, you saw a beautiful sign of group consciousness and more. You would have seen many signs of the future if you spend time thinking about that video. You will have seen it was born for the future. The symbolism was not only about the beauty of group consciousness, but that group consciousness is of cosmic origin. And it gave us a sign, listen to this, it gave us a sign of the incarnations of divine sparks. In the video, Will.i.am finds a dial that reveals gateways for each of the members to go through. Gateways, another word is portals. What does that symbolize? Gateways to, or portals to higher states of consciousness. Gateways to initiation. You see, the new generation watched that video and became inspired with what? The higher worlds. That cosmos is a pathway toward higher states of consciousness. The video went on to depict that the members used a stargate and turned into shooting stars enlightenment and land on the planet. There's so much more I could talk about this video, just that statement. What does it mean to land on the planet? It means to incarnate. That the great ones are coming in. Shooting stars, illumined ones, are coming into incarnation. The divine stars landed on the planet. Divine souls are coming into incarnation. Can you see these things? You may have noticed that these sparks returned together. Not separate from, but together. This is cosmic group consciousness. Last weekend, you learned about Jupiter and the Juno space probe. Did you know that Jupiter is not only the largest planet in our solar system, but the first planet to be formed into a planet, making it the oldest planet in our solar system? The success of the Juno probe mission will enable scientists to discover the evolution of the planet and much more. They are likely, these scientists and what they learned, it will likely expand their consciousness as the probe reveals more and more about the evolution of the formation of Jupiter and thus life. And in so doing, they, or we, may learn more about the formation of our own planet. I think, if I remember correctly, this probe will continue for the next 20 months, to investigate and see what it can see, and then it will burn up in space, because the scientists are now becoming concerned about what we are doing with polluting space. There's also another Voyager, I think it was called Voyager 1, that is still out there in space, and it is now going outside of the solar system. It's gone beyond Uranus. And then I think it will reach Neptune and then go on out. And it has been probing space for about 38 years now. Hey, pay attention to these signs. This is our future. We're not separate from space. Consciousness. Consciousness comes into being when the flame of the soul hits the substance of the mental plane, your mental mechanism, and creates a lighted area in the mental plane. I hope you can be a little creative and imaginative when you think of this flame of the soul hitting the substance of your higher mind and creating a lighted area in this mental plane. You know, think of it intuitively, abstractly, instead of trying to paint it into, you know, a form that's black and white and that you can color it the way you want. Extinction of consciousness occurs when the flame of the soul no longer supplies the current of energy to make this fire grow. And when this happens, the results mean that the consciousness is now darkening. It means the person is now trapped by his glamours and illusions and lives that live against the spiritual principles. In extinguished consciousness is found infection. In extinguished consciousness is found infection. The germs multiply, vices, vanities, ego, separation and greed, and so forth. Such elements, when united with the destructive forces of the dark ones, increase then in our mental plane. And whoever comes in contact with such people have a physical effect, physical reaction, which is that they feel physically weaker and weaker, emotionally unstable, and mentally confused. Shocking, isn't it? The behaviors and actions of a group conscious person is just the opposite. Group consciousness is a state of consciousness in which a person who has achieved it thinks and acts in terms of the whole, finding the stargates for us all to go through. All his thoughts are charged with the goodness toward everybody. Not just your religion, not just your national group, but toward everyone. We begin to think in terms of wholes. All his thoughts are charged with goodness toward everybody, toward every group, nation, and humanity. And all his thoughts, words, and actions, in other words, separatism no longer exists. He has a clear understanding of issues and their causes. People do not yet see that no individual can really individualize himself except by recognizing others, accepting their existence and feeling one with them, feeling as the one self in all people in the world. This is how we are going to get humanity through this dark time, get our family through this dark time. It's not them and me. It is us. In group consciousness, the interests of the group, family, and nation are more important to us than our own interests. In group consciousness, the members develop a very strong sense of responsibility toward each other and toward all living forms. It's interesting when I think of teenagers and they're off doing their own individualization thing. And mom and dad say, "No, you can't do that." Of course I can. I'm my own person. It doesn't hurt you. Well, every parent knows it does hurt the parent. It does hurt grandma and grandpa. It does hurt the aunts and uncles and the cousins and everybody that's still part of the family. And then that huge family, that begins to have an effect. What that teenager did has an effect on his friends, has an effect on his generation. It does. So when your teenager kid or grandkid, or in my case, great grandkid, says, "I can do whatever I want. It's no business of yours." Sit him down. Say, "Let's take a look at this." Not only must individuals cultivate group consciousness for their future interests, but also groups and nations must cultivate group consciousness toward each other. When all the travels that I've had since the year 2000, and I've been introduced to so many different cultures and levels of consciousness and the way people live their lives. But despite all the differences, I've found that we all have a commonality. And that one commonality, we have many, but there is one in common that everybody has, and that is love. That is love. Love is, how can we say it? Love is what is love? Let me think about it. Love is a unifying energy. If we think of love, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, love is an attracting force. Hatred is a repelling force. So that's what our commonality is. And what I discovered in all these different various countries and cultures that I've had firsthand experience of, and some of those experiences were extremely difficult to be part of. But Master M says world travel is so important, and now I get why. It expands our consciousness. And as this consciousness, our consciousness expands, we see the bigger group, the greater group. The test is, can you put yourself in the rhythm and the harmony of the greater group? Or are you going to say, well, I've done a lot of traveling and I've been there and, oh, you can't believe this and that. Well, when I was sitting in Mongolia in a restaurant, so-called restaurant, and they were dipping out one of their delicacies, which they cooked the meat in the stomach of a lamb, and they're putting it on the plate, and I was going to gag. It was kind of hard to see the oneness, and to feel part of that culture. But later I thought, well, that's like, in this country, it's like filet mignon. And rather than cooking it in the cow's stomach, we cook it in the oven. Well, I don't. But you can find the similarity. And when I began to see the similarity, even though I couldn't eat the food, at least I respected, that this was a delicacy that they had cooked for us. Their music, Mongolian music, is very different from American music. But when I was able to talk to some of the musicians and learn how they played what they called a violin, and the talent that they have, the talent that what their voices can do is extraordinary, I became appreciative, of a musical culture, how different that culture is from our musical culture. But wouldn't it be great if we could integrate their knowledge and their talent with the knowledge and talent of musicians in this country, composers? So all this travel expanded my consciousness to where I now understand group consciousness in a large way. Striving disciples must realize that their life, words, actions, and thoughts have an effect on the life of other disciples, for good or bad. When group disciples unite in study and labor, they must realize that every move of their life affects their group members. Either they bring new enthusiasm for group progress or retardation. You may think that the word disciple is too religious or even archaic to present times, but that's okay. Find a word that fits your consciousness. Perhaps the word light bearer would work for you, or a shooting star. But for the time being, let me use the word discipleship. At this time, human beings enter into greater light in group formation. They take initiations together. A group is formed by many degrees of initiates. Some of them have not yet taken initiation. Others are first-degree initiates, and others are second-degree. Some are perhaps ready to rise into the third initiation. Group initiation for such a group means first that the ones who have taken the first initiation must be ready for the second one. The ones who have taken the second initiation must be ready to take the third initiation. Group initiation will be possible if the initiates of each degree move on to the next degree of illumination. All groups must move together in great light. Group initiation means that each individual in the group takes the next initiation. But if it happens that one or two individuals do not move on the path of initiation, then they hold back the group initiation. And that group cannot take group initiation. This is why each member of the group, even for his own advantage, must relate with other members in a way that kindles their spirit, evokes in them deeper striving, and enthusiasm in the teaching and service without imposition and fanaticism. Often it happens that when the group is ready to move forward, the group's soul repulses dead members. Such members separate themselves from the group under various excuses to let the group go forward. Such members are not lost forever. When their soul awakens in this life or in another incarnation, it enforces very painful and strenuous disciplines upon them and makes them enter into spiritual progress to such a degree that they are enabled to join the group again as moving lights in the group. No member of the group has the right to prevent the advancement of the group with his own inertia, carelessness, or vices. There are also cases in which members feel unworthy in spite of their dedication to these 7 principles, 7 group principles. As long as one is dedicated to the group goals and is striving to move forward spiritually, and in his service, he has the right to remain with the group efforts. Remember that the uniting power in a group is love, it is forgiveness, it is the spirit of striving toward perfection, and it is a vision for future group achievements. If these factors are present in our consciousness, then all kinds of personality frictions dissolve and the group moves forward. It is important that all group members develop a fiery love for each other and see progress into greater beauty and achievements. Unless such a quality is developed, the movement of the group is going to be bumpy, it's going to be difficult, retarded, and painful. Each group is a living organism in which the cells and organs manifest striving and labor to keep the organism full of life, magnetic, radioactive, and expanding in light and beauty in world service. Membership in a group is an opportunity to prepare for certain initiations. If we keep this fact alive in our consciousness, then group life will become a field of striving and joy. And with this striving and joy, we are going to overcome all that prevents our group consciousness toward greater achievements and service. Now, when I'm speaking about group consciousness, can you think about the planet? Can you think about humanity taking the next initiation? Think about it. The teaching explains that groups, like individuals, through their service will manifest their divinity, and as a unit have a divine incarnation. Why do you think the United States is the most powerful country in the world? They just weren't born into it. It didn't just happen. They earned it. And now they must sustain it. This is why this next election is so important. The general election, I guess they call it, is so important to vote for the right person. Ashramic group members who have dedicated their life to service and the accumulation of wisdom continue to be members of their group even after they pass away. To be conscious of such a relationship, the member must pass to the mental plane after they leave their bodies. Now, what happens is the emotional body of advanced disciples will create temporary problems. But as soon as they overcome them and begin to work on the mental plane, things change. And this is why we particularly put our members on a transition list and work with them subjectively to help them get through that emotional plane. Astral plane. The difference, now let me just say this. Such members receive the same instruction. Once the person is passed, they are now on the mental plane, right? You with me? I know this is a long talk. Too bad. Okay. Such members receive the same instruction from their master or teacher as the ones who are still in their physical body. The difference is that mental plane disciples can communicate with their teacher more easily than the physical ones because of the absence of the astral and physical hindrances of various forms. A master gives his instructions both through written messages and by telepathy. Before an instruction is prepared, its mental counterpart already exists. And before the physical plane students receive the instruction, the mental plane students already have it. So for example, we are in the process now, our conference committee is in the process of developing the theme for the conference for next year. Either they're going to do it by just looking up books and find something that's interesting to them, or they're going to meditate on it, make contact with that counterpart that already exists, and then bring it into manifestation, and we'll have a great conference in March of next year. Instruction on the mental plane is more direct and detailed in their esoteric aspect than the instructions given to physical plane students. Why? Because not all physical plane students are yet ready to absorb that fiery energy. Whether a disciple is in the physical body or in the mental body, he remains a part of the group consciousness. This is why, first of all, we must feel that we are not alone. Second, we must know that all group members are in both spheres aware of us. And third, we must raise the power of the group by living in self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and practicing right speech. So that, I gave you a lot to think about this morning. And this is why we put everything up on the YouTube, so that you can go back and listen a few times, take more complete notes and really think about it. This is an important talk this morning, from beginning to end.